Hey guys, once again, welcome back. Anurag here, and we will continue with the middle game series. Just a moment. Let's check. Yes, I think we're live. Okay, so we can start. Okay, so we'll continue with this, and yesterday we had seen some sacrifices, etc. Hello, Arnav, and hello, Jess. Nice to see you in the chat. Pretty early. So we will continue with what we were doing. And again, playing for initiative. Now you can see that the king on c8, not very well placed. Your bishop is good. Um, Black doesn't have any immediate idea. He will try to improve his king and try to connect his rooks. This is the biggest problem for black at the moment. The rooks are not connected and they are not joining in the center immediately. Black would have liked to play something like king c7 and let's just play rook d2 and rook d8. At least he would be able to connect the rooks, try to exchange and pretty much equalize. But the problem is that he just runs into bishop d6 immediately. And hopefully you all can hear me clearly. And he runs into bishop d6. Hello, Rama. Good to see you once again. Bishop d6 and you lose the pawn on e5 straight away here. So that's not possible. So black wanted to do something here. If he plays this more rook d8, again you can do something interesting here and not allow the exchanges. Like you could have done rook d8 and taken over the file with rook d1. Looks good, sounds good, but I mean after the king moves, he will again get his second rook into the game and then he will try to go for exchanges. That's exactly the kind of thing you do not really want to do here. And thus, what white can do for rook d8 is, if you'll get it in the chat, that's also good. I can give you a few seconds. You can get it in the chat. Hello, Aryan. Any ideas, people? Yes. Okay. Things are fine. Yeah, bishop e7 is the move. Very nice, Anna. Bishop e7, displace it, and then you get the file for yourself. Once again, the king on c8 is important. You keep the king towards that side, you're blocking his rook also from coming in. And we know what to do for king c7. Bishop d6, and you simply win the pawn on e5. So white is simply better here. There is one more thing that black has to worry about is if white wants to take over d6, that's a weak sorry, if that's a weak square, not only can you take the bishop there, you can also try to sometimes think about, once again yesterday I had done this with you, picture which piece can go to certain squares and then you can try to backtrack. For example, if you see the d6 square, maybe the knight also would be really nice here, right? I mean, I'm sure all of you will agree that the knight also would be beautifully placed on d6. And if you backtrack, I think we clearly don't want to sacrifice a piece here. So e4 seems like a way that we can get there. And thus, one more idea that white can do in this position is, let's say black plays b6. Okay, he's trying to get the king to b7 and then connect the rooks. There's one more problem here for white. Again, I will give a few seconds, or I'll give a minute actually. It's a little bit you can think of it and tell me what like I'm thinking only about the d6 square. Okay, so only we're focusing on this. Clearly we can go with the bishop here, but black can easily defend with knight d7 or maybe even initiate exchanges with knight e4. Both are okay, I think, here. So let's assume that a knight can maybe reach there. uh how would you get it there? Any ideas? Well, you're most welcome, Rama. Glad to have you here once again. Hello, Shrey. The same principle that we saw yesterday. If you cannot really get a piece there directly, you can try to backtrack. Okay, Knight to d6, maybe. Let's say we are thinking about the knight to d6, it'll be even better than the bishop. Just backtrack. b5 is not possible at the moment, so e4 seems like a square. Can we get the knight to d6 in some way or the other? Yeah. Okay, that was also a very nice idea actually. Bishop f3, king b7 and knight b5. But the problem is that, Arnav said this, e4 is coming in the way. So Shrey, you said g4. That's a good way to kick that bishop away. You also said it, g4 Arnav. Bishop goes back and then either bishop f3. So that no longer is e4 possible. You have two attackers there now. So e4 is no longer possible on the board. And the second thing is, if he defends it with king b7 like he wanted to, you can use knight b5. So your backtracking was even better. You played knight b5 and got it to t6. That's also good. There is one more way, g4 g5, like Ojas I said. You get control over the e4 square. Kick this knight out of here. Knight, let's say, goes back, and then knight e4. And you get knight to d6. So that was also on the in the back of Black's mind. And what he did was he tried to prevent this g4 move. He cannot really do king c7 immediately. He cannot really do rook d8 and benefit from it. And he sees the problem with b6. So in order to prepare for b6, what he did is he played h5 to stop g4. Now there are 2-3 things you can still aim at g4. That you can do 2-3 things as white. You can still aim to play g4, or you can change the plan. You can change and, like, let's say, double up the rooks. But what do you think white did in this position? Yes, you said g4 and bishop f3, of course. Like, that's exactly, like, I was just highlighting the different ways to do it. G4, bishop f3, knight b5 was one way. G4, g5, knight e4, knight d6 was another way. Both ways were good here. And well, endgame, like, you can definitely read a book, and we will be doing an endgame series later. You can join us there. Our friend Atul is right now doing an endgame series at 9:30 p.m. on his channel. You can definitely visit him also to get some ideas on endgames. Many ways to improve. F3 is it? And this is where, you have to take a step back, Shrey. F3. Like, don't forget your opponent's ideas also. F3 is a bad way to do it. You're trying too hard. You should not try too hard for only one idea. F3 is one way. Anybody else said rook g1? Nobody said rook g1, but rook g1 is another way. This is trying a little too hard to get g4. Like I said, you don't need to focus only on one idea. You can always change the plan, play rook d2 and double up. The moment you do f3, you have, like, a bishop is bad now behind all the pawns. We have done this earlier. That is one problem. Your bishop is not going to have a good way to come out. Secondly, let's say you wanted to play g4, g5. Okay, your idea was to play g4 and knight e4. Okay, so, but you allow b6 because you don't have bishop f3 anymore. That's one thing you have allowed black. And second thing is, what if he pushes h4? He has fixed your pawn structure now. His pawn is excellent. He's fixed your pawn structure, and g3 is now a hole which the knight also can benefit from. And there is one more thing you've weakened, is the e3 pawn, which again black can also pawns directly with bishop h6 straight away, attacking e3, pinning this king, and now you have difficulties even defending this pawn. Like, king d2 is not a good way. King d2 is clearly not good. You don't want to bring the king here, and bishop c5 simply runs into b6, and you probably can lose the pawn. So think about your opponent's ideas. f3 is just trying too hard for that. Similarly, rook g1 also is trying a little too hard, because this time again he will play h4 and fix your pawn structure. So you cannot really play f3 and do it. Is there any other way to do it? Hello Manoj, good to see you in the chat. Is there any other way to do it, is what you should think of. And then you can approach this, like, you can go about the position. Is there any other way to do it? By the way, this game is by Sarvan and Sasanko, so let me just show it to you on top there. Is there any other way to do it immediately here? Nothing direct, right? Nothing immediate, nothing like, you can go for a different plan. Like, you could have gone for a different plan, but white had other ideas, and what he did is he's just playing for the initiative. And that, you see that this is the reason the disconnected rooks, the misplaced king, and the activity of his pieces called for him to play for initiative, and he went for g4 straight away. ignoring black's like defense. Like he's losing a pawn there, but in the process he will get great activity for the pieces. Doubling on the rook on the d file was another idea in this position, and it is not having any idea. Like it is just trying to improve your own position. Like it just that's a way to go about it. Similarly, bishop f3 also would have been a way to go about it. Not always will you have pawn sacrifices working like this, right? If your idea is not working, you can focus on some other idea. Don't only focus on one idea is my point. You can look at something else also. But he went with g4 and let's see how it went about. At g4, at g4. So if you're playing for an initiative, you're sacrificing a pawn here. You have to be a little bit cautious. You have to be a little bit fast. Now black has done the right thing here. He's a pawn up. He's going to exchange material rather than knight into g4, which leads to complications. So bishop into g4, rook into h8, bishop into h8. And now can you find out the move that white played out in the game? Bishop into e2 is a serious threat. I mean, that's not a serious threat. It's a serious threat of exchanging pieces. It's not losing material. And exchanging pieces, maybe not the best idea. And black now may be planning to also, like, bring his king up and connect his rooks inside. So what do you think white should do in this position? Okay, now here also some people, like sure you said f3 here, and somebody else said rook h1 here. Both moves have some merit to it, but I just highlighted black's idea to you. F3 is okay, but rook h1, see, I highlighted black's idea. He's bringing the king out to c7. If you see king c7, I don't think rook h1 makes a lot of sense because he will just bring king c7. Okay, you wanted to take on g4 and then, okay, it does have some merit to it. King c7 means you can take and maybe, rook h7 and you can probably win the f7 pawn. Black cannot capture on f2 too because of rook f7 and then you can capture back. But how about I improve my plan? I will not go to king c7. You have moved the rook out, right? I'll move my king to d7 now. And now the point is that if you take and rook h7, my king comes out to e6, centralized and defends everything. Like, okay, you have some ideas with knight e4, but still it's complicated. We are not really sure whether it's actually working out or not. The king is coming out to the defense and you're allowing him to get his rooks aligned immediately. But it was okay. You're trying for something. F3 also preventing the exchange of the pieces when you're looking for initiative. This is a good idea. But white found a better way to do it. And yes, bishop e7 is the more, yes. The idea is rook d8 check. So black has no time to capture. You're going for that rook on 8 there and material up, finally exchange up, and then after that a piece up. Because you're attacking two pieces here, you will become a rook up actually, sorry, not a piece up, a rook up in fact, and you're immediately winning here. So rook d8 is a serious threat, and there are two serious threats. Black can also, he has taken care of two things here. If he goes king c7, now here white can play bishop d6 and immediately capture this pawn also. Bishop f6 would have been lovely to play immediately, and after bishop takes e2, okay, you can do this actually. Sorry, my bad. Actually, you can do this. You have a tactic here. Bishop takes h8, bishop takes d1, and bishop takes e5 just in time to check that king, and then you're two pieces for the rook. And this time, two pieces for the rook. The two pieces are better because there are a lot of pawns on the board. It's not like only one or two pawns left, and the material of the pawns is equal. So the two pieces will always be stronger. You can capture with the king also actually, and the two pieces are definitely stronger here. Sorry, I completely forgot about a small tactic there. Bishop takes h8, and if you take rook takes h8, knight into e2 wins a piece. So you're a piece up finally. So for bishop e7, black played bishop d7 because he has to take care of both. He had to move his bishop back. Now I want you to continue and see how exactly shall we go for the initiative. Keep going. Like, what is the next thing that we can do? Black is temporarily stabilized. Then you can think of whether you can restrict his pieces, create more ideas, or go for something direct. A while back somebody had said something, you can go for something immediately and directly. Here also he did the same thing in the game. There are 2-3 ways again to play it out. Restricting, limiting mobility of your opponent's pieces. Knight a4, generating new ideas, trying to maneuver your own pieces into better squares. b4, trying to open up is a little too slow, let's say, because too much time is taken there. But these are the ways you would look at, or else you can look for something direct. Rook d6 though, is not the most accurate direct idea, because he can also, like, he might take his pieces back temporarily. You're pushing his pieces back, but you have to also retreat. You're wasting a little bit of time, and his king can regroup, or he can go for some good exchanges here with bishop f6. So white had other ideas, and he thought that, okay, I think I don't have too much time on the board. I don't think I can just play slow chess here, because there are no queens on the board. The king is coming out, and he will soon mobilize his pieces. The rook will join the attack soon. So he went for something quick. Rook h1, took over the h file, attacking. Again, black this time cannot play king c7, because again you have a small tactical resource with bishop f6, two pieces for the rook, and you might even go on to win the e5 pawn pretty soon. Black played bishop g7, and now if you play rook h1 and you're allowing bishop g7, you're allowing the next thing also king c7, so you have to be a little bit faster in your approach, and that's where white played bishop into f6 and tried to enter his position. So sometimes you can play slow, sometimes you can maneuver, sometimes you have to go for something immediate and direct in the position. This is what we see here by Servan. Yes, Servan is a pretty strong player, and you must have seen him recently on some commentary also on chess 24, and he played he didn't play this rook h7, he played knight e4, and there's a reason why knight e4 first. Okay, if you go rook h7, he plays bishop e6, you play knight e4, he plays bishop e7, your rook h7 and bishop e6 thing is a little bit of a waste. What you could do directly is, now you can go rook h8 here and force his bishop back, but what white did is he played knight e4 first. If black goes bishop e7, he might as well go rook d8 directly, and rook h8, sorry, directly. And the thing is, if the bishop goes back, the bishop was on e6 in the previous position. You remember when I had played rook h7 first, but this time I just simply go ahead and win the f7 pawn, because there is no defender here. If you had tried to do the same thing by getting a little bit lazy with rook h7 first and then tried the same thing, the bishop now is on e6, preventing the f7 pawn. So black is okay here. So small, sometimes small orders are also good. Black played bishop d8, and again white is in no rush. He played rook h7, but here I think knight d6 was also good. He played rook h7 and went for it. Okay, he went rook h7. The idea is bishop e6, and he wanted to play knight c5 and probably disrupt black's position. The rook and coordination is not good. Went for this, but okay, if you look at it simply, you could win the pawn back, and that should be good enough, because his structure also is worse here. Once rook h7, bishop e8, bishop g4, restricting the pieces further, king c7, bishop e6. What white did is, instead of going for the pawn this way, like you could have won the pawn this way also. But what happens is, we have seen some material imbalances which will be good for your opponent. What happens here is, you have opposite color bishops on the board, which probably is not the best way to try to convert a position. Like, it's still better for white. It's not easy for black to hold this, but opposite color bishops, right? If possible, you can avoid it, and that's why white played bishop g4, king c7, and bishop e6. By the way, people who are asking about f5, it's not really working, because the game would have been over sooner than expected. Not 98, but simply rook b7, and that's a mate straight away on the board, so no time for f5. And after king c7, bishop e6, bishop e7, bishop into f7, bishop f7, rook f7, white managed to convert this game as he went along. Now we'll not go too deep into the game. We'll focus on the part where we are looking at the initiative. After this, it was like the end game part of it, which we'll do in the end game series once again, slowly trying to convert a material oppositional edge. This is the later part of the game. Yeah, converting a winning position, we'll be looking at that too in our series. So converting an advantage also, if we get time, we'll look at some examples today. If not, tomorrow we'll be doing converting the advantage, material advantage as well as positional advantage. Like, this is not a material advantage, this is a positional advantage. Your knight and rook coordination is quite good, the rook is actively placed, and black structure, that's one of the major reasons his position is pretty bad here. Black is not lost here. Okay, black is definitely not lost. He can give a good fight, but I mean, it's not very easy here. White managed to convert this as he went along. We'll move on to the next game. Okay. Now here in this position, you can see that White is having a huge lead in initiative. He's going for the attack. He has the pieces also. Importantly, when you start an attack, the pieces which you have are also important. Like you have two bishops, you have the rook connecting. White just played g4 last move. Okay, we have started the game from here. White just played g4. And he's starting his offense here. Bishop d3 will join in rook g1, and the bishop here will play a supporting role. Coming to development, black is also like completely underdeveloped. White's king is in the center, but I think his pawns are quite good here on e5. He has a strong center. The king is not having any threat to deal with immediately. Black's piece is also not like overly developed. Now, if you're black in this position, what would you try to do here? There are two ways to go about it. Countering a lead in initiative, counterplay, all are correlated. So what is it that you would do in this position? C5, yeah. Rook h1 was better there. I don't know, like we saw as we continued on. Actually, let me shift this position as black, and let's remove the arrows. So as black here, what would you try to do? There are two, three ways to go about it. Either you try to hold the position on the king side and figure out a good way to defend, or you go for the offense. Countering a lead in initiative is either going for the offense, capturing the material and then trying to counter it, or trying to play safe and try to take care of the most important pieces that you would see from white side and try to balance it out like in this position. So what would you do here? Oh, sorry, I think I clicked on this. Yeah. Yes, minor pieces to bring towards the defense is what Shrey says. F4 is what many people are saying. And this is the normal idea in this position. If you're seeing that the G file, the pieces are joining in too fast, you would want to play something like F4 and prevent all sort of play on that side of the board. Unfortunately, right, if you play F4, you're closing down the position, but only temporarily, because white's pieces like with bishop d3 are joining in way too fast here. You cannot really stop this attack from being devastating. Like you cannot defend the h7 square. You have to either play g6 or h6, and in sorry h6. Both moves are not really doing good, because if you play h6, let's say h6 first, again you can simply capture queen g6 and then queen h7, and possibly black's pieces are way too far away. They are not able to join in for the defense here. Another way to go about it, you can take your time, start an offense here with h4 and g5, and if black tries to exchange, you have a choice again in this position. Either go for complications with bishop g6 and go for an attack and try to mate him. Again, if you have time, if you have everything, if you're feeling good, then you can definitely go for bishop g6, g5 and go for the kill. Or you can just capture and calmly take that f4 pawn, and then comes the part where you try to realize your material advantage. You have material as well as position. You have all sorts of advantage here. You have the pair of bishop, you have the extra pawn. I don't think you should be messing up. And if you mess this up, then okay, like I cannot say anything, but this is definitely a huge edge in the position. A pawn, double bishop, a strong attack, better center. There's absolutely nothing that is worse for white here. So you should be able to convert it. Or else you can go for bishop g6. Queen moves somewhere and then just start crashing through. You cannot even take. And you can go for the kill, go for the mate. So it's creating weaknesses. And if you play g6, again, no need to rush. You have got an edge. Like a common idea here is to play. I'm sure everybody is looking at it. Let's flip it from white side. What do you think you should do as white here in this position? His pieces are underdeveloped. So like you can see, these three pieces are not in the game at all, and they're not coming in very soon. So based on this, you have two, three choices. You can play slowly, steadily, use your use your positional advantage to your benefit. You have a strong attack still, or you can go for the kill here and bishop into g6, which most of you will immediately consider here, bishop into g6. It does work. It does give a huge edge, because you have to consider material sacrifices. Okay, here your pieces are out of the game. Your pieces are joining in very soon. You can even go ahead and win the third pawn, but I still feel, right, you don't have a mate here, and your rooks are not able to immediately lift towards the mate. You would have loved it if you did not have a G pawn here. That G pawn is unfortunately getting in the way of the rook. So in this position, I would not capture bishop g6 because I don't see a mate. Rather, I would just play queen h6. I'm targeting to win this pawn, and I can use h4, h5, and crash through anyways. I have a strong attack also, and I'm not risking too much. Like if he plays g5, like he's getting mated here. And if he doesn't play g5, he's probably going to lose the f4 pawn. After that, h4, h5 will also follow through. So you can play simple also, you can play complicated also. I think here, in this position, making a choice would be, like, simple is much better here because your opponent doesn't really have anything. His pieces are not there. He has not got c5. He has not got cd. Nothing is there. So let him get there. You can easily capture. Let's say I'll capture. He plays here. Now I can even bring the bishop. Sorry, I can bring the bishop back, defend this pawn, play c4. Then I can think of whether I want to take. But I'm a pawn up finally. I can play slow also. And I can, continue simple also. And this is simple, like, material edge, which I have to realize over time. We'll be doing some exercises on this also. Maybe if not today, tomorrow, definitely. How to convert your edge. And f4 is definitely not a good way, as we realize here. It's just not going to be enough. Then you have to look at ways which immediately try to go for counterplay. Or you can look at what black did in the game. Any idea? People said bishop d7 is better instead of f4. Okay. Why exactly bishop d7? I don't know. And Ojas is saying c5. So these are the two possible ways you can try to regroup your pieces towards the king side for defense. You know that this bishop will be the most dangerous bishop along with the combo of the queen. Somebody said queen e8 also. So queen e8, right? He will play queen h4. Again, what will you do next? You're not really benefiting that much from queen e8. You're trying for exchanges, which is a good idea, but it is not really helping that much in this position. Like, he will just decline. You cannot keep going for it. He will keep developing his pieces, and then bishop will join in, rook will join in, and you will anyways come under strong attack. So the two ways you can look at it is either go for c5 and try to, crash through, open up the position, look for counterplay, and ignore on this side. So this is the way you try to counter the lead in initiative. You try to go for something yourself, or you try to hold his attack at bay, which he did in the game. Black played differently. c5 also would be very good. c5 is actually something that you should prefer more often. But in the game, again, this is also an old game, but we will see his idea, and I like his idea quite a lot. Flank attack in the center, open up the center. You know this simple principle to keep in mind, guys. If you have an attack on the wing, you're coming in the attack, or you're attacking. If you're attacking, you should close down the center and then begin your flank attack. And if you're on the defensive side, if your opponent is doing some flank attack, you either try to attack on the other side, other wing, or you try to open up in the center. Makes very difficult for your opponent to continue his attack because somewhere he has to worry. Like, for example, if he plays c5 and he plays bishop d3, you can even try to push c4 and kick this bishop off this diagonal and then bring in something on the queen side, or you can even take in the center because you look for some counterplay ideas. You try to crash through and try to get something going quickly in this position. Now coming to the game, he played bishop d7, and just want to highlight the idea to you. Bishop g into f5 was played, rook into f5, white played queen h3. Now you see this strong idea of attacking h7. There is no time to play c5 now. You cannot just balance between both the ideas because then he plays bishop d3, you can't even move the rook. Clearly, as I said earlier, h6 and g6 are not the way to play here because you're just weakening the position. You're weakening more squares and giving him more pieces easily for the attack. He has strong ideas here. You probably can get mated pretty quickly in this position. There comes the time where black did what he did in this game. He played bishop e8, realizing that this bishop is much more important, and after bishop d3 comes this beautiful bishop g6. So again, yesterday we were looking at exchange sacrifices, material sacrifice. Sometimes the material sacrifice is to go for the kill. Sometimes it's to hold your own. And here we see that he's giving away his rook because he knows that this bishop will do a much better job. It's not easy to attack this because there's no piece, no knight, no bishop to challenge it. And he's able to hold everything on the king side effectively. Like the knight also can join in pretty quickly. The bishop has joined the game and he has taken away the most important attacker for white, that d3 bishop that white is missing now in the game. White did not take it immediately. He played rook d1. Black played queen f8. Now planning something on his own, and finally white took it. Black took with the bishop, queen f3, and knight c6. So I just wanted to highlight you two different ways that black can play in this position. Black went for development, by the way, now, okay? Once you're materially down, you don't want to unnecessarily, go for the like c5 and try to, you have to also take care of your opponent's ideas. King h8 would be one more way to play it, just to stop bishop h6. But when you're materially down, you're trying to hold your own, you're trying to keep things neutral here. You're not trying to immediately go for the kill. You're not materially up now, or material is not equal. So a move like knight c6 was actually nice because he's going for development. He's trying to even capture some important squares, maneuver his pieces into better places. White went with queen e2. If he goes with bishop h6, white still is keeping his ideas alive. He wants to go for the kill. He wants to go for a strong attack. And what black does immediately in this position is, that's possibly the only move here, but bishop g6, and with this move he also forces the exchange of the queens, because now the bishop and the queen both are under attack. So white cannot just move the queen, lose the piece on h6. And after queen into f8, rook into f8, it's safe to say that okay, you're an exchange down, but you have more than enough compensation because your bishop is quite strong. Your bishop is quite strong. It's doing an important job. You don't have too many weaknesses in the position, and also the position is not very open enough. This position is quite close, so this bishop cannot be that resourceful. Black can also set up some nice outposts and keep everything together, hold everything together, keep it locked down. Like, let's say no, you cannot move this. Let's say I play here, I play knight a5, rook b1. This is one open file that white can try to benefit from. This is another, and on both files he doesn't really have enough pieces to create something on the board. I'm ignoring the c2 pawn for the moment, but you can also capture that. But the point is that once you sit a knight on c4, his bishop is not very useful. Rooks also are not able to utilize themselves effectively, and he's not able to generate any strong attack because he's also missing out on the queen. One more thing to keep in mind is, if you had done c5 casually in this position, right, that would have made a completely different situation, because now when you go for this exchanges, bishop goes here, he is able to, although his structure is still not very good, he's able to utilize some open files. For example, you go here, rook c1, the rook is out, rook is into the game, and he's able to utilize his rooks effectively. So capturing that extra pawn sometimes is not a good idea. It's helping white to improve. And if you do something like this, white also has ideas of sometimes doing okay, rook b1 is one. He can also sometimes play c4 and try to sacrifice some material to get something going for his rooks and pieces, which he would never be able to do after in this position. Like, rarely it's possible once we capture with knight a5. He has absolutely no way to open up. Neither is f4 and f5 possible, neither is h4 and h5 going to be that good enough. So you see that you have restricted all his pieces very effectively. Yes, it's definitely the French defense, I think. I don't remember it. I'll have to check it out, but definitely the French defense. Most likely this structure is coming from the French defense. So most likely, and I think this is the French defense. It's not even the Karukan, because you would have had a pawn on c6. So it's going to be French. And hello everybody who have joined in new. Thanks a lot once again for tuning in. Yeah, c2 is hanging. I just wanted to ignore that c2 pawn, because okay, it's possible to capture here. Here it's not the same. Here though I would maybe ignore, or I would, okay, this is also possible. I can stop him from doing it with bishop d3. That's also quite good, but I don't want to allow any openings on that for the rook to get activated. That was my point. Okay, so going back, he did not do this. He played queen e2, and then white played king h8, and the game went on. Still cannot play c4, but it's important for white to keep the queens on the board if it's possible. And black's idea will be to try to get rid of the queens. It will make it much easier to hold the position, and immediately don't allow any opening, or don't do c5 yourself, at least not quickly. Like, I'll just show you what he did in the game. a5, b6. Now b6 was a way to hold it. It's not like trying to open up. Like a into b6 and c into b6, it's still keeping everything closed, still keeps the idea of this. Now of course, this is white had played well. He tried to get something going, which is the best idea. He opened up a file at least for the rook, but black is still able to hold everything, and he played well after this. But this is this next part of the game, like how to continue. That is not really important. What we wanted to figure out is there were two ways to continue in this position, bishop e8, bishop g6, or going for the offense with c5. If you're materially down, you don't want to do c5, you want to hold your own. And if you're playing for c5, then it should be, you're doing a race here. You have to win the race, hopefully. Otherwise, you will lose. If you play c5, you have to go for immediate threats. Like, it has to be fast. It cannot be like, you cannot just relax here. Like, it has to be something quickly. Anyways, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so we have Shiro finally, and we will see some fire on the board. And Shiro is one player who is known for his exchange sacrifice, even though sometimes they were not really necessary. He has a knack to sacrifice his exchange, sacrifice his queen. He also recently won the game of the tournament in the online Olympiad also. So everybody should know Shiro. And this was a pretty old game, so that's why 2500, but he has increased significantly after that. So in this game, 1990, he's playing Barif, and let's see what he did in this position. There is no best opening for black guys. There is no best opening. I mean, it has to depend on what kind of positions you want. Like just now we saw a game in French. This structure is the Dutch structure. It depends on what kind of play you're looking for. When you're looking for French, you're looking for a solid opening where it's not solid. Let's say it's trying to improve slowly. Whereas if when you play Sicilian, you're trying to get play going immediately. Sicilian is more open. E4, E5, you're trying to keep the structure neutral. So it depends on you what you want to play. There is no best opening also. But preferably try to play more of the open or positions where you try to get more positions on the board, like e4. Try to play more often of those openings rather than openings where you don't get too many positions, especially if you're starting fresh. If you're starting new, you're like recently started playing or you have been playing for a while, but still I would prefer to play something which is more open, where you get more variety of positions. If you play one e4, you come across Sicilian, you come across e5, you will get experience in more positions, wide variety. If you play one b3, then probably very little positions to come across, so your chess will not really improve very well. Preferably this is a better d4 or e4, you can choose whichever. Similarly for black, you can choose openings which are more this. Don't play modern perk, like preferably avoid them at the start. Okay, later you can choose whatever you feel comfortable. So here now c4, black played e5. This is a common way in Dutch to try to advance. Now very similarly, you also get this structure, right, with the bishop on g7 in King's Indian also. And in King's Indian, we know one of the major ideas is to play f5. So black has gone for this. This opening has come from the Leningrad Dutch, most likely. Seeing the structure, it's the Leningrad Dutch with f5. You see this, but we'll see what he tries to do. e5 is a very common idea in this position, trying to open up in the center, challenging white immediately. White played d into e5. If white had just played something like this passively, black would have taken over with e4, and then we see the benefit of f5. Normally what happens is, if the pawn's on f7, black tends to waste time by moving the knight and then playing f5 and then starting with g5, f4, etc. Here he will be ready to do it immediately. g5, h5, h4, f4, whatever he wants. You have given him total control. Definitely not Shiro's style of play. Shiro goes for d into e5, d into e5, and here d into e5, knight e7. Sorry, I mean, you cannot capture d5 because you're losing the pawn. And here also, right, knight into e5 is possible. You centralize the knight, and yeah, it's not bad to play knight into e5, but sometimes you can keep in mind that the spin can be annoying and black can exploit it. In this position, it's not possible because if you play something like knight g4, white can, like, fortunately, get his knight to f3 and defend it, and it should be okay. But if your knight was not reaching f3, you don't want to do f4 here and weaken the position. Clearly, you're allowing a lot of things here. Knight here, queen here, and even after knight e5, you're spoiling your pawn structure. So that is not really great. But if you did not have knight into e5, if you did not have knight f3, what you could do is you could capture bishop takes e5 rather. This is a much better capture. And how you decide this capture is that there is nothing that can challenge this immediately, so we'll probably not waste time. And the most important thing is we are material up. So the important thing here is you don't allow black anything. Knight g4, knight d7, no sort of things are coming here. Simple pawn up. Simple next you can just develop and you're completely better with extra pawn. But let's see what black did in the game. Knight d7. And I want you to just take a pause here and tell me, what do you think white did next here? Black is intending to capture back with d takes e5. Ben, you can definitely look at like if you're playing some games, right? First of all, people tend to play games and forget to analyze their own games. So you can figure out where you're going wrong. And if you use something like chess base, what you can do is you can just input that game and check out reference games. Like, use some Tweak database. Tweak is free. You can just download it and you can look at recent games, olden games, how they are playing in those structure, what you're doing wrong there, what they are doing better, and automatically will improve. Here also we're doing the same thing. We're looking at games and we're picking out their ideas, what they're doing differently, what we can learn from them. You can do the same in your openings also. Just look at games in that and see how they continue. Automatically you will improve. E4 is one. Knight E1 in this position, like I suppose you're talking about previously. Knight E1 here is okay. It's trying to maneuver your knight somewhere, but I don't think Knight E1 will be a good way. Knight D4 is interesting. Knight D4 is interesting, and there is a reason why it's interesting. Yes, online database also is probably similar to Twig, although yeah, maybe online database also. I'm sure like there will be many references. Mega database is also available if you want to purchase it. You do get some extra annotated games in Mega database. Online database also, I tend to use Twig more often. Every week you get, every Tuesday you get downloads on Twig on the official website, and the games are available for free. So feel free, you can download all the games from there. You prefer E4 here. So making a choice like Knight D4, I like this move, Knight D4. He did not play Knight D4, but I will highlight one important point why Knight D4 is interesting here. Because you know that once he plays d into e5, he keeps the center symmetrical, and he's also planning his e4 ideas. You can definitely play e4 also here, guys. Okay, e4 is also possible, but okay, knight d4 has one important point is that you cannot play d into e5 anymore because knight e6 is forking. And what you're doing by knight d4 is this: you're not only looking for this nice like fork here, but you're trying to spoil black's position or change his position completely. One more thing to not forget is you have now unpinned yourself. Here you could not take it because your bishop was coming under attack, right? Knight d4 unpins your own bishop, plants rook knight e6. So black has no time to play rook e8 here. You will just simply capture on ed6 and you're a pawn up here. Clearly that's not a good way. And of course, like one more thing, like c5 is not really working because white has bishop d5 check, king goes here, and then we come with knight e6, forking the bishop and queen. Bishop g7 again with a check, a long variation here, ending up an exchange up plus I think 2 pawns up. I think safe to say that we are completely winning here. So supported by that also. And if it takes knight e5, we have changed the structure. We have created an asymmetry, or let's say the position is no longer symmetrical. We had seen this on the first or second day that d6 is a potential weakness that we can focus and try to exploit. We have something to play for here. So knight d4 move is actually quite nice and interesting. I like this move, knight d4. That's one way. You can also do. Well, I know you're saying bishop a3 here. Yeah, basically, Shiro wanted to not allow the symmetrical structure and he went with bishop a3. Okay, you have told me the exact. I don't know if you have seen this game earlier or what, but he has exactly played what Arnav said there in the chat. Bishop a3. The point is d5, you're simply winning an exchange here. Bishop takes f8. And after knight e5, once again, you have achieved the same thing which you did with knight d4. The goal was the same, you had a weak pawn. But here, what Shiro did is he did something interesting, which may have not been needed, but we are seeing Shirov here, so he did something interesting. Something simple like rook c1 and then queen c to rook d1 is good enough. Your goal is to focus on the d6 weakness. You have created an asymmetry in the position, which is good for white anyways, but Shirov went knight into e5. Once again, d takes e5 is losing the bishop on f8, so you cannot do that. And after bishop takes e5 comes knight f3. He's sacrificing the exchange immediately because he understands the value and importance of pieces. Now, look at this bishop. It's doing a good job of preventing all the dark squares around the king side, defending the d6 pawn. It's important for basically the defense and support on the king side. Then you're creating a lot of weaknesses. If you exchange this, dark square bishop. You can either exchange it or do it the Shiro way, which is like give the exchange straight away. Well, exchange for an exchange is what Shiro does here. Gives the exchange away, queen into a1. Definitely not something that Indian also agrees on. But the point is that now the dark squares are completely weak on the king side there. One more thing to keep in mind, this rook was not doing anything productive at the moment. Bishop was doing something very productive here. So instead of focusing on developing it, Shirov just sacrifices it. Not always needed, but just we'll see what he did. But now when you play this, you cannot really go and focus on pawns, and like you cannot go for too many exchanges. You need to keep as many pieces on the board. So he sacrificed the exchange. He has got a little bit of lead in initiative and development, and he has some weak squares. So it's important that if black plays something like queen f6, he played knight c5 to get the knight into the game, heading to e4 also. White played rook d1 and queen f6. It's important that you don't exchange the pieces immediately. And this is a very natural move, although not the best. It's not the best move in the position, because one more thing we had done at the and on the second, or I don't remember, first or second day, is if you're trying to exploit this long diagonal, can anybody in the chat tell me which is the best way to exploit this long diagonal? And thus you will understand why queen f6 is a little bit helping us in our idea, or helping Shirov in his idea. Yeah, definitely. Maybe we can expose the players' names next time after that. So I will move around scenes maybe. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that people are not looking for moves online, hopefully, guys. You all don't do that. Come on. F4. You're looking for F4 from black side. Okay. But see, your dark squares are weak there. It's a good idea to try, because if you're black here in this position, we have been doing this. If you're materially up, you try to neutralize your opponent's attack rather than go for a kill yourself. You're already materially up. You try to hold off the important ideas. So queen f6 is a very natural move. You're trying to exchange queens. But I'm asking a simple point here. What is the best way to exploit the long diagonal? Of course, bishop b2 is belonging on that diagonal. Clearly, nobody wants to give away bishop on c5. But what is the best placement of pieces on this diagonal? That is also an important point to understand. The placement of pieces should be, like, he didn't play bishop b2 immediately, but the placement of pieces should be like, if you battery them up, whenever you battery them up, it's better not to have this battery, but it's better if the queen was in front of the bishop on c3. This is a much better battery if you have the queen on c3 and bishop on b2. And thus, what happens after queen f6 is, white just plays queen c1. Simple, like nothing. It doesn't need to immediately take off pressure. Doesn't need to immediately take off pressure here on the d6 square. It takes queen c, queen e7, and there we see bishop b2, because now this is also an important idea. So black manipulated queen f6, which is a natural way to exchange the pieces. White gained an extra tempe also in this position. He got the queen to c. He's getting the queen to c3 or getting the queen to h6 pretty much immediately. Black should have immediately played queen e7 directly instead, because you don't have that much. You have to waste extra time to do it. So the idea should be the same. You don't want to keep this battery, but you want to get it the other way around. You want to get the queen ahead on c3. So this helped white. But it's a natural mistake which tends to happen in these positions, no matter how strong, because you're looking for the immediate relief. You're trying to exchange the most active piece, and that's the queen. But it helped white here, and then we'll see how Shiro converted it. Knight e4 was a good way to stop it. And again, just because you see knight e4 and you see this diagonal, it doesn't mean that there's only one way to go about it. Like, the most natural way is to get rid of that knight and play knight d2. It's not a bad idea to play knight d2 and exchange it and then focus on this entire diagonal and the weaknesses. But Shiro did it otherwise. He just played queen e3, keeping pressure and also initiating other threats like queen d4 rather than exchanging more pieces on knight d2. And also one more thing is, like, now knight d2 can even exploit this simple pin that we have on this e7. He's making more and more problems for black in this position. Now today's engines, modern engines, are extremely strong. It's very difficult to compete against them, and they come with some ridiculous surprises for us. So, but that is not what you expect in the practical game. In the practical game, the next best move for black would not be possibly played out. The best move for black apparently is king f7 defending. See, this is not a very practical move when there are so many things happening here. Knight e5, queen h6. Nobody would want to play king f7 in this position, but it was according to the best move, according to, if you go a little bit deeper in depth. But bishop e6 was played, a very natural choice. And once again, queen d4. So we saw that instead of exchanging and taking away the knight, white found a much better way, keeping more pieces. Black came king f7, because now knight f6 was losing queen into d6, and he's ending up in a very bad position. Otherwise, also, let's say after knight g5, it's just not very good for him. He's struggling everywhere, so he goes for king f7. He's trying to run away, but this is because there is an actual threat. There is an actual threat. Here, there was no actual threat immediately queen d4 to play king f7. But Indian is thinking way ahead of time. So if you play queen d4 now, what is Indian thinking? He's thinking of not developing bishop. He's thinking of playing pawn. And you know why? Because he wants to open up a square for the king on c6 in the final variation. But that is not what we think of. We are not thinking that way like Indian. We are trying to understand his simple chess and simple moves, human moves. So bishop e6, queen d4, king f7, h4, opening up a square on g5 for the knight, making it difficult. Rook d8, and here he went with knight g5 check. There were other ways also, but knight g5 check, knight into g5, h into g5, and then he played rook d7. So basically now, understanding the position, your bishop will be penetrating much more effectively on those diagonals. His rooks are not there on the open file. So although he's materially up, white is better. Understanding this position, like if you have to, like white is materially down, but positionally definitely much better, because black's pieces are badly placed. Rook is not active. Queen is doing a defensive job, and the king is on the run here. He's not feeling very safe and comfortable. So white just consolidated. No need to rush. Just defended f4, not allowing any sort of entry points, nothing. Not in a rush to capture on a7 and then allow queen g5 and some counterplay. The things that you have to look out for black here, let's say after f4 he played queen d8. Yes, you see his idea immediately. He wants to exchange the queens of the board straight away. That is one more thing. There was one more way to continue in this position, is to try to get d5 and open up. Like that is also another way, for which I'm sure everybody will play. Which move can you tell me in the chat? After d5, what will you do here? So we already have people looking for tactics with bishop a3 here in the chat. That's nice. But first thing, you should just see if you can do something simple and keep it intact. Your bishop is still strong. Queen is like, this piece is a dominant. The battery is very strong here. That is okay. You have great control over all the dark squares. His bishop is bad. And c5 should be the most natural move. Then you can think of your extra tactics, tactical resources that you have on the board. But this is a bad move, bishop a3, because you're exchanging a good bishop for his bad bishop in a simple term, if you put it. Queen into a3, queen f6, and king here, queen into here, and then queen e7. He's able to defend, and you're not getting anything. What you have done is you have picked up his bad bishop by exchanging your bishop. Yes, and most, like, there are 2-3 people who have said bishop a3. How to understand? You have picked up his bad bishop, exchange his bad bishop. You're going to force the exchange of your own queen. So let's just see how to, because your queen has no square to go to now. You cannot do c takes d5 because he will exploit a very simple pin here. And when you do queen into e7, oh, you're winning a pawn here. But that's not what we want, because what in the process, when you move in the pawn, you're helping all his pieces to get activated. His rooks now have beautiful files to play on. That's exactly what you did. You just helped him improve. Instead of playing c5, you went for this complicated variation, which is still losing in a much different way. We can definitely, I'll show you the variation which is immediately losing for white. But you can see the simple thing is, once you're trying to do this, let's say your thought is that I'm winning a pawn back and bishop and pawn for the rook. No, you're trying to hold this position. Like, you've given an exchange not for this. You've given an exchange to keep him inside there, locked down. So c5 is much better. Don't allow him to open the files up. Now coming to the variation main thing here, bishop a3, queen a3. If you play queen f6, you're immediately losing, because I have king e8, and after queen into e6, I can play rook e7, right? I can play rook e7. Like, let me just see. So yeah, rook e7, and I think the queen is Yeah, the queen is trapped, right? Queen cannot go here. No, not here. Everything is covered. You have to give one check here, and after king f7, surprisingly, the queen is trapped straight away. You can't even like benefit from this. Like if you sacrifice your own piece, also still, unfortunately, that dear queen is trapped there on c8. Cannot really come out anywhere. So you cannot really do anything about it or try to improve. Nothing can be done in this position anymore. So your queen is getting trapped, and that's the fastest way to finish it. But that's anyways not what you want to do. You want to keep that queen, you want to keep that king inside. There is one more tactic which nobody told me. Queen g7, somebody said queen g7, but nothing after queen g7. See, queen g7, queen into e7, you can win a pawn here in this process, okay? If king e7, you have nice bishop a3 and you win the exchange. Again, you're leading to exchanges, but finally you're winning material back. And what happens after this is, let's say we even lock him down with c5. The position is locked, but his bishop is bad. A king does have a nice waypoint here. King can enter into black's camp. His rook is bad. You have more space. You have a better pawn structure, and you have ideas to open up or target his weaknesses also. You have a lot of ideas here. But in the process, right, you should also see what happens after rook takes e7. Because now you have exchanged the queens. You will win your exchange back, but in the process, you will lose a pawn. And then what happens after the exchange? His bishop is now active. You're a pawn down. And the exchange sack did not work out too well for you because you were in a rush. You were in a rush to win that exchange back. And then if you realize suddenly, oh no, bishop a3 is not working. What now? Like I cannot open up the play. I'll play c. But then you exchange the queens for nothing in that process. You just help black. Can anybody tell me a way for black to continue here in this position also? Let's say you're materially up. You know which pieces you have on the board. You're trying to activate them. Can anybody tell me what they will do as black here? You're still struggling with your rooks inside, your bishop bad. What will you do as black? Try to open files, try to get something going for your own pieces. Open up the position, the rooks automatically become stronger than the bishops, meaning materially wise also. Right now, they are not really effective. Black to play, what are the ways we can continue here in this position? Yeah, very good. Some people are saying like it's d4 in this position. Excellent. I like d4. D4 is what they're saying. Okay. Some people are saying D4, which is also, I like this idea because what you're trying to do is your exchange of your bishop. You're trying to open up the file without allowing too much to be like you're not trying to keep your rooks in. You're trying to get something going for your rooks, opening up the file, sacrificing a pawn for the same. Very nice idea. I like this. This is the way you can look at it and try to improve. But first you can look at the simple ones. There are some simple ways also you can do it. D4 is a good move though. I like it. B6 is one way, trying to open up that thing. And very nice here. Somebody came with bishop c8, bishop a6, activating. Very nice. These are the maneuvers that are very important. And if you start looking at this in your own games, automatically you will start improving. Look at the ways to improve your own pieces. D4 was good. Look at, if you find D4, you know where you're trying to activate your bishop, trying to activate your rook. You can see if there is something simpler. If the position is completely locked down, then d4 would be the only way, and that would have been the best way to continue. Here you have b6 also with this beautiful maneuver on this side, or open up the file. Once you get the file, most likely black is going to win this position. Gets the rook out, his rook enters, it's going to crash through. Second way, h6. You can sacrifice a pawn here so that you can get rook h7 and try to open up the position. Now this is not the best way, but just an idea, because here I think we will trap our own rook here by allowing bishop g7. But that is also another way you can look at trying to open up the position. b6 is definitely the best. d4 is the second best, I would say, trying to open up without allowing him to just hold fortress. Like if you do this and he plays bishop d4 and e3, he may stop all the openings that you have, and thus moves like d4 and b6 are good here. This. Now let's go back and flip it. Black played queen d8, d5 should have played c5 in this position. That's the best way. You can consolidate and then figure out what else you can do. Now black played queen d8 here, queen d8 here, trying to play queen b6, and Shirov took care of it in a very simple way, and thinking also about the future. thinking about the end game. Somebody said end game also in this position. Like somebody said, like you're thinking about the end game. Shiro is also thinking about the future also. He's not only focused on the current year, he's also thinking of maybe in the end game. You know what to do in the end game? The simple thing to keep in the end game is the king closer towards the center is always better in the end game because it can go to both sides of the board. The right wing, left wing, it can go both sides. So instead of preventing exchanges by, taking the king to h2, and like he's preventing exchanges here also, but he took the king to f1. So in case he wins the exchange back, it's heading into the end game, the king is closer towards the center and can be more resourceful and useful there. c5, and this is a good move by black. c5, like it's a good idea, not a good move, good idea. It did not work out for him, but it's a good move, I would say, because his idea was to open up at d5. Unfortunately, it backfired on him because after queen c3, rook e7, Shiro came up with some good resources and secretary this here. Can anybody find me the best move? Now we are heading into the tactical zone here, and black missed out on something here. It's very difficult to play as black is what we realize here. Although black is materially up, he cannot even do d5, which we'll look at in a moment. But rook e7, can anybody find out here? Yeah, king f1 is the better move. Yeah, instead of king h2, you can stick the king towards the center. It's defending the e2 pawn also, and it's not very vulnerable here. Not enough pieces for black to create problems for the king on f1. Queen g7, there is king e8. Sunita. Queen f6 also, there is king e8. Why are you rushing so much? Like, you will have to move the king back, queen back after playing queen f6 or queen g7. Like, the queen is under attack, you'll have to move it back. Same goes for queen f6. Queen is under attack, you'll have to move it back. So king h1. No, king f1 is the better idea. For rook e7, we have a nice bishop into b7. Offbeat opening, like you cannot. I cannot tell you like this. Like it's like offbeat opening. Like it can be anything. So you cannot counter each and every offbeat opening. You will have to sometimes like know which ideas are the best in that position. That's why I said, like, if you don't know, if you don't understand what to do in certain positions, just input that game and search for games on that. You will automatically get a good idea, and you will understand much better because you will be seeing the entire game rather than some people just looking at the lines. Like if you just look at the lines by clicking the keyboard, nothing will go in your head. It will just go past your head. You will not understand half the things that are happening. And sometimes what happens is you're also looking at the engine and trying to study, and I explained why exactly that's a bad idea. Because let's say a coach is giving you this idea, or let's say the high level players are following these ideas, they're actually able to understand what's going on, why they're doing it. Even they have difficulties sometimes, but they try to understand and then play that, not just look at the engine and top choice, okay, this is what I do and I will play. That is not the correct way, because you will not understand half the things engine is doing, and then you will start struggling in your own games because you don't know how to continue. So the best way is this: look at games and try to see what to do. Bishop b7, rook b7, and queen g7. That's the thing. You're winning an exchange there. So this was the first blunder there by black. He missed out on bishop b7 coming there, and once bishop b7 came, white has won his one pawn, extra pawn, and then he has also other squares to take advantage of, like bishop c6, which might be helpful in one of his queen f6 or queen g7, bishop c6 ideas. The game finished very quickly after this, so we'll just quickly finish that. Queen b6, nothing working immediately. White just retreated. Black played a5 to try to open up. White just played rook d3. Now, again, when you are attacking the d6 pawn, just like your bishop and queen is in front. Sometimes here also, if you're attacking the d6 pawn and your goal is to win that pawn without exchanging material, it's better to, put the queen ahead of the rook. And also you keep one more idea open, which is you can utilize the rook here on the e file. So ba4 and coolly going for it. It was not needed. This was not needed, but he went for ba4. Queen d2 was also simply winning here. Rook e3 also was winning, but ba4, queen a6, rook e3, same idea, queen f6, queen b3, utilizing the open file, and then king f7, bishop f6, rook e6. The second exchange sacrifice came on the board here. This again was not really needed, okay, in the game. I could have played slowly, but Shiro, and we know what Shiro does best. He knows which pieces are important for. This is the bishop which is important for defense, and once I play rook e6, he will just be stuck in a complete bind. We had seen this position earlier, guys. I'd shown you one of the I'd shown you this position earlier. We had seen one e4 idea, and this is the Shirov game, like I was I had shown you. Like we had some ideas by people, like a5 and bishop e6 was played in the game, but we had ideas of playing, let's say, something. Let's say here, some ideas of e4 and king e3. We had seen these ideas like on day 2 or something, but here he played a5. If queen a5, then comes queen b7, and then there's a mate on g7. And after king f8, bishop e6, rook e6, queen b8, queen c7, and black resigned because he's soon getting mated, or he will lose the rook. I think he'll get mated only. Basically, after this, and you can see that he's going to get mated on f8 anyways. Okay, so let's go next to the next game. Yeah. Okay. So here now again we have some sort of something similar to what we have been doing. His king is in the center. You're leading in initiative. What is the best way to go about it? This game also has probably come through French. Doesn't look like a French, but it has come through a French most likely, or it has come through a Sicilian. It's come through one of those, either French Tarish or Sicilian. One of them. White to play. Before I show you who the players are, uh, what do you think white should do? Black played bishop e7. Sorry, black has played his move bishop e7. White to play. What would he do as white here? Are you talking about this game here? Already know the game? Wow, that's nice. If you're talking about this game, which I have not even shown you the names of the players, then that's quite nice, Frips. You already know this. Bishop f3 and knight d4. Where are we? Like, which position are we on? Is the chat? Am I ahead of the chat here? I don't know why that happens. I thought I'm in very low latency mode, but somehow I feel like yeah, I don't know why this happens. I don't have a stream delay actually, but somehow I feel like sometimes I'm behind. I'm ahead, sorry. You all are behind. Guys, once again, if you're enjoying it, then definitely support us and do like and subscribe. Do not forget to do that. It does help bring more people in. YouTube's algorithm says it, so we don't know what it is, but if you feel like supporting us, then do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. The sacrifices were indeed very interesting, and that's what, if you want to see sacrifices, you have to go to the Riga mates. Now, I think Shiro plays for Spain, but Mikhail Tal, and then we have Shirov. Both from Riga, the Riga Masters with sacrifices. And then we have in recent times, even there is a player from Latvia who plays like that. Kovalenko is also a uh, very aggressive player. It's also from the same country, Igor Kovalenko. Okay, everybody's in bishop f6. So first you should see if there is a simple way to continue to gain some advantage before you go into bishop f6, giving a bishop away. Because if you're going to give bishop takes f6 here, you have to play for initiative. You're playing for initiative. You're trying to do something quickly here. So bishop f6, and then what do you want to do, guys? Before we go into that, right, I will highlight some simple ways that you should first look at, and then you should try to go for bishop takes f6, and then look for your Richard Rappo is from Hungary, though he's not from Latvia. I was talking about Latvia. Richard Rappo is also excellent that way in his approach. I've followed his lot of games. I like his games. Richard Rappo, Jobava, all these players play some different kind of chess, so it's very interesting. So the simple things to first look at is whether we can stop. We are looking at, the goal is to keep the king in the center and utilize his badly placed pieces to our benefit. We are laying in development. We're trying to utilize that. So somebody said bishop e5. Yeah, but bishop e5 is a big mistake here, which black has you should be aware of black's tactical resources also. It doesn't really have to move the queen in this. Bishop e5 is Can anybody tell me what exactly is happening after bishop e5? I just gave a big hint by saying, like, you don't have to move the queen. So I'm sure people will get it very easily. Although moving the queen also is fine, but what do you think black can do here? Bishop e5 is, like I said, quite a lot. Bishop e2, you have many ways to play. Simple chess with bishop e2, aggressive chess with bishop e5, bishop f6, knight g4 is the move here. Very nice. You can simply move the queen also, guys, and then, what happens is after castling, right? Black is completely fine and he can also start his own attack with b4 or so. But here black has a nice tactical resource which gets him into a good positional advantage. Again, bishop takes here, knight takes e3, f takes e3, and rook takes b8. Again, we'll be doing this. If not today, we'll see if we can do 1 or 2 games today on how to convert this position, how to play this. Some simple edge, just 2 bishops and nothing else. Not a material up, not this is just a positional edge. Because you have 2 bishops, you have the better structure, your structure, pawn islands, let's say look at it like that. 2 pawn islands here, 3 pawn islands for white, weaknesses, and double bishop advantage. How to play with this, we will see that. I'll also show some examples from my own games. But right now, okay, bishop e5 is not the best move anyways. The other simple moves before we go into bishop takes f6, the simple moves, bishop c5. Yeah, very good. Somebody said bishop c5. That is also a possibility in this position, that you're trying to, prevent him from castling. Queen c5, you're trying to prevent him from castling, and this time knight g4 is not really strong enough because white has queen d4 attacking this, which okay, like after that we are not into engine is on a whole new level, but we are trying to look at simple ideas here of why exactly bishop c5. I think everybody will agree that it's a simple move here trying to prevent him from castling. Queen d4, engine says bishop c5 is better for black, but I don't think we will be agreeing unless we know. This is what people tend to do when they're looking at openings. They will say, okay, bishop black is better, I can easily enter. Then after queen d7, king f8 comes on the board, they start doubting themselves. Oh no, is this the thing? Like, is my king supposed to be on f8 like this? And then they start doubting themselves, and that is what goes wrong, because engine is thinking about winning one extra pawn. He doesn't care too much about the king because he knows he will find a way somehow. We are not like that. So top players, when they're looking at this, they find the right ideas which will get them out of the danger immediately, and accordingly they prepare their variations. So don't try to only like look at the engine and play out your moves. Similarly, here also engine says bishop c5 is better for black. It's hard to tell why exactly. The king is not able to castle. You have the better bishop. Everything positionally seems better, but the engine has found a way to figure it out. He is saying queen f4 is better. After king moves, I can play rook c8. And if I move my queen somewhere on a3, you're getting to b4. He tries to find the best idea, and he thinks that black is already better. But that is not what we're looking at. We're trying to understand what are the simple ways first to do it. Then we can look at the complicated ways. Somebody said bishop e2, bishop f3. That's also possible. But white had other ideas, and he went for bishop takes f6. It's also important to follow that plan correctly without missing out your opponent's resources. Like after bishop f6, bishop f6. What did white want to do? Knight d5, is it? So people say it was knight d5. Knight d5 is not the best move in the position. He didn't go knight d5. He had other ideas, but knight d5 is not really doing that much because black can just move the bishop back. What does he do here? Bishop... I think knight b6 is one idea. Knight f6 is one idea. So what if I just move my bishop back? I defend everything. I maintain the 2 bishops and I'm planning to castle. And this time you cannot really stop me from castling with something like queen c5 because I think I can capture also. This time my rook is not enough. The bishop is coming there in time for the defense. Knight d5 is not the best way. Rook takes d7. Is it? Ramakrishna says rook takes d7. Excellent. And that's exactly where you have to take a step back and verify what your opponent is also doing and accordingly play out your plan. Like bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, rook takes d7, tries to keep the king in the center, but unfortunately loses your queen to bishop g5. And that is important to see. You just not rush into your own ideas. He might also have an idea. Suddenly you have lost the queen here and probably losing the game also. In this position, like suppose you go here, you just not enough. It's just 2 pieces. And his rook is active, your pieces are badly placed. That's not enough compensation. That's not a good queen sacrifice. Not working out well. So bishop g5 is coming, and thus your plan should be rook takes d7 is a good plan, but you should just get it done rightly on the board. Relax, take it easy, and take care of bishop g5 first. Bringing the king out is the next step. So knight e4, planning knight into f6. King b1 is not enough. So king b1 means he will move the like bishop, or he will let's say bishop c6, and you don't have anything immediately. Maybe you know that you have given away your bishop, queen exchanges. If king b1 was the idea, then you should not play bishop into f6. It's way too slow. You have no time to do that. Knight e4 was played by white, threatening here on f6. And naturally, black went with bishop e7 to take care of everything. And then comes the blow, rook into d7. And the point of this exchange sacrifice, it may not be the best move according to engine, but it's trying to keep that king in the center, and a goal to play will be based on that. This plan was not, I would not play this immediately on the board. It's not immediately winning or something. Actually, black may be even better, but it's difficult for black to play, and that is where white exploited this position. Like, it didn't exploit also. The game ended in a draw actually. But king e8, queen takes g7, out came queen f4 check. Black's best move in this position was to go to the other side, which is not very natural, and it is not very easy to decide whether your king is completely, it's safer to take the king to that side and keep it behind the pawns. But this is like apparently the best move in the position. It's not so easy to decide, because after queen g7 he's getting queen f4 check defending, and then getting the rook out to d8. But the king is out in the center like this, like not really comfortable to be in this situation. So black played king e8, and after queen g7, queen f4, king b1, again not removing the knight out. Queen e4 means you have queen h8 coming with a check. Yeah, queen e4 means you have queen h8 coming with a check, or you have bishop d3. I think bishop d3 will be better. No, bishop, okay, maybe queen h8 and then bishop d3. So if the king comes here now, you can play bishop d3, queen d3, bishop d3 I think. And if he takes queen g2, my queen comes out just in time here with a check, and now your bishop also can join the party with bishop e4. So you have a nice position right away here. The material is again equal. Or maybe you can even capture and get creative. You can bring the queen back just in time actually. Forgot about this. Yeah, this may be even better. You're just simply winning a pawn. And if he captures here, I think again the king in the center is a little bit vulnerable. So knight e4 first to start it off, and then rook f8 and then bishop d3. So white went for this. It's not very clear still. The king is unsafe there. White has good compensation is what we can say here. He's not winning. It was not the earlier position in Shirov's game where he was completely dominating black. Black is not having any weak squares, but white has knight, a well-placed knight, a bishop which could be useful if there are any weaknesses, and one pawn also to play along. But how to make that decision if that something simple is not really working out? First, see if you can simply exploit it, simply continue in a slow, simple, steady way. If that is not working out, if you feel like always somewhere you're going wrong, or you're feeling like you're too slow, your opponent is castling and he's able to get his pieces immediately into the game, then you can go for something like bishop into f6, knight e4, and go for the exchange sacrifice. Not always is it needed. Not always do you have to play exciting chess. Sometimes it's okay. Exciting chess will come over time. Like let's say black played king, white was very this. A small trap also, king b1 is a small trap, but black can take care of it. But if he castles now, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and rook takes d7. On the other hand, if I had developed, he could castle. Because if you take bishop takes f6, rook takes d7, there will be bishop g5 coming on the board. Now the next part of that game after those action, after bishop d3 is on the board here, that is not really important to us right now, but how to play after this, how to continue is not really important. So we'll not go too deep into this game because it's not very exciting also. It was very slow and cautious. So we'll go to the next game. And actually, before I go to the next game, let me just quickly highlight that player. So the player is, as you can see, Shabalov, Alexander, and Makarov Marat. So let's go next. Okay, now this is basically playing for initiative. Okay, now you have seen that black has already done b4 on the board. What do you do as white here to continue in this position? First, try to see how serious, like what do you think black will do next? He's going to open up on the queen side, like a4 this. So there's a wing attack going on. Like Black is attacking on the wing and he's already there. He's already having b4, a4, a3 is not very far away. So how do we continue? What do you think you should do in this? Okay, I have one suggestion here, queen f2 on in the chat. Like, okay, queen f2. What is the idea of queen f2 exactly? Like, formulate your plans according to what ideas you have. Like, if you play queen f2 with the idea of g4, I don't think both ideas are helping each other. Like, they are not really. Queen f2 is not needed to be playing g4 here, or queen g2 is not really needed to be played g4. You can play g4 directly also. Black's plan is this. So this is basically like, trying to get something going quickly and fast. You cannot really slow down. But then you should also think of simple, silly things or silly ideas also that should be at the back of your mind. And this is where, like, we trying to consider. You try to consider those patterns automatically. It's maybe not be the best move, but you should consider those simple silly patterns. Like, let's say I know one pattern which most of, like, many of y'all will already know, a Greek gift. So a Greek gift comes with bishop h7 and knight g5. Now, is this pattern fast enough? Is it like easy going to fall and you're going to play f4 and I'm going to take bishop h7? Is it even working? Knight g5, king here, and then queen h5. You have a mate here with queen h7, but is he going to fall for it? No. That's a small trap. Like, he's going to take care of your idea, and it's not really creating a weakness. It's not really being helpful, because if he plays g6, he's stopping your main advances with f5. Your Greek gift no longer working, and a queen did not improve to a better square. But the pattern should be there at the back of your mind. Same pattern you can improve with something like this. This is very sneaky, because it looks like you're planning queen h3 and trying to advance, but the main reason is just to go for bishop h7, knight g5, and queen h3. And now you have the same pattern in a slightly different way, but it was very sneaky, right? It came up like black did not understand. Maybe the strong player will not miss it, but you can always utilize your patterns in the game. You can try to utilize them. You can look for such simple, silly things and try to benefit from them. The second thing is also other patterns, like, maneuvering your pieces, let's say, or initiating weaknesses. Like knight g5 is trying to initiate some weaknesses there with g6, but I don't think that's really helping, because he anyways wants to play g6. Let's just say that that's understood. He wants to play g6. Bishop b1 is also one more pattern that should come to your mind. It may not be the best thing, but I want to, the battery which is much stronger. It's the bishop behind the queen. Like, you have seen that in Shiro's game. You saw the example, you saw the pattern. You should try to understand that and see whether I can get it here and can it be useful. Is my opponent going to play b3 to stop it and I just get a3 and the position is locked down? Now I can coolly focus everywhere on the queen side completely. King side completely. The queen side is completely locked down. But no, that's not the case here, because after a4, queen c2 is still at g6 and his attack is now much faster. The g6 was anyways useful to stop anything with f5. It's not helping us that much. But the first thing you should do is look at different patterns which are possible, which I can create here, which can stop his attack. Can I do something sneaky? And then you can think of, okay, this is not working. Then I can go for something quickly and fast. And that's where you have to decide, okay, he's playing a4, a3. I need to be a little quicker, and g4 can come into the game. You can start your attack offensive immediately. This is indeed the way to continue. G4 and f5. You're not really concerned about g6 also now, because f5 is anyways coming crashing through. White had other ideas though, because he felt like he was overly slow. He felt like g4 also would be too slow. I don't need g4. And he went for he played for the initiative, and instead of playing g4 or knight h4, though, okay, g4, we have g4, right? We don't need knight h4 there. Knight can be very useful for anything on knight g5 or so. Like, it's better to keep it there. G6 doesn't really stop everything, but definitely closes down. Like, it's helping him. He might want to play g6, so you should not try to force him to do that. f5 was played out by white in the game, which is not the best move immediately here, actually. Sorry, f5 was played out by white, which is not the best move or really needed, but white felt like he was overly slow and went for this. You could actually play g4 and f5. As we can see that we have a mating attack there. We are utilizing all our pieces. So probably black has no time to do something like this. What would you do as white here? I mean, how would you continue the attack? It's not very difficult, guys. Come on. What do you think will do? White will do in this? Crash through onto black's camp here and just destroy him completely. Anybody? Like, you got it? F6, yeah. Just crash through F6 and just like it just completely lost. After G6, you have multiple ways to win it. Queen H6, I think, should be the simplest one. There will be F6 also winning. There will be many ways to win it. So you're getting a crash through immediately, and you can see that your attack on the king side is much stronger. You're much faster actually if you go to C. It looks like black is much more advanced, but our pawns are targeting the king. His pawns are targeting the queen side, which is he's trying to crash through. Your attack is much stronger and be much more useful and important. So f5 is a good way. You can immediately crash through. Black will have to find a good way to defend it, but white had other ideas, and we'll see what he did in the game. He went with f5. Sorry, f5. Let me promote this. He went with f5 because he felt like maybe his attack is not fast enough, so he went with f5. Now after ef5, it's important to continue in the same spirit. If you're going for this, if you start playing slowly with knight h4 and initiate weaknesses, then your attack will, like, pawn sacrifice is not really that useful. Once again, black took here and disrupted his pawn structure because you know that f6 is crashing through. You know that f6 is coming, so we cannot really take time here. He has to play f5, and this is where white again showed us zing. He went with the same thing, with the same spirit, like, he wanted to open, and he played g4 in the game and tried to continuously open up the position straight away here. After f into g4, he went with knight g5. But we'll not go too deep into this. He tried to play for the initiative. It's not always necessary. Let's say he played h6 and then knight h7 and then looking for knight f6. This kind of play is only necessary if you feel like your attack is not fast enough. If, let's say, black was already having a pawn on a3, if there were too many things to worry about, he had a bishop, like he's able to get his knight is on b5, he's able to get something very quickly. In that situation, you can look for moves like f5. Other situations, you can do it slowly with g4. Sometimes use your patterns. You solve tactics very often. Try to see if you can replicate them on the board. Very sneaky, like, nice idea here. This is a very the sleek idea here, because it's very not immediately coming to your opponent's head that okay, you're planning bishop takes h7, because it's not the common idea. It's not like, queen on e2, knight g5 check and queen h4. That is not the idea. That's the Greek gift. But here you're trying to do it in a different way. You can look at that also. Not always is necessary to, look for the most exciting and immediate play. But when you're playing it, like here this is not from a game. This is just a position which I picked up. I don't remember which game, but okay, it's okay. We can move on and look at, I'll show you one of my own games now. And I'll show you the name also. Okay, so coming from my own game now, let's not focus too much on the opening, but I played d4. This is very old in 2013, but how I played for the initiative and how I messed up, how I played badly actually, and what I learned from it, I will try to explain here from my perspective. So I played knight c3. It's a little bit of a sideline, but okay, I prepared it that day. Knight d5, bishop g5, knight d7, queen d3, e6. So he played c5 and I played e4. So we had prepared this. I had prepared him for him specially, but okay, he went wrong immediately in the opening itself. C into d4, and I had prepared bishop takes f6, knight takes f6, and queen into d4. The opening is not the most important part. Here onwards, the play starts. D into e4, and I have sacrificed a pawn now. There are two ways I can do it. I can play queen into d8 and keep his king in the center and try to win the e4 pawn back in a moment or two after castling. But then what happens is, once I even win the pawn back, he ends up with two bishops. He ends up with two bishops soon. He doesn't mind losing this pawn. I may win that pawn back after this, but I don't like this position for Why? Because he has two bishops, his pieces are better placed, like not better placed, I would say. Even my pieces are like badly placed, let's say. They're not really developed, and I don't think this was the right approach here. So I went for something of an initiative and I put my queen on e5. The moment I put my queen on e5, I've restricted some important squares. Rook d1 is coming, and I have some good ideas which I've opened up here. Bishop b5, also keeping an eye on this. Sorry, also keeping an eye on this weak e4 pawn. Here onwards, black played a6 here, rook d1, and he went wrong right away here. Bishop d7 is the best move. And okay, this line is slightly better for black after bishop d7, but he played queen b6. I'd seen one of these games and he did not have too many things here in this variation, so I prepared it. And queen b6, and here comes the blow. You're trying to play for initiative, and this is where the real part of the game starts with the bishop b5 check. A blow comes straight into, like I've used all those ideas with knight b5, like connecting in, king is in the center, pieces are not connected. I'm trying to utilize that to my benefit in this game straight away. He cannot really capture because after knight takes b5, I have knight c7 as a threat, I have knight d6 as a threat. He cannot really defend all those threats at once, and he's going to lose the exchange by force. I think I can just go and capture on 8. I don't think I have anything better, but I'm winning material and I'm winning the exchange also on top of that. His king is also in the center. And if he tries something like, let's say, rook a5, then I just have knight c7 also. He cannot really defend everything at once here. All the threats, like here, I can even, I think here also knight c7. And I can just do this because, again, I have a pin here. It's very strong. White is already better here. He played bishop d7. And now I see a way to immediately, keep his king in the center. I could have done bishop d7 and rook d7, but that is not the best way. You're most welcome, Shrey. Hope to see you again next time. And here in this position, I went with knight d5. Again, I'm trying to use that initiative. I have no time to, go for bishop d7 and try to win that e4 pawn. I'm trying to keep his king in the center. Knight d5 comes on the board. Again, a blow. Queen takes b5 leads to knight c7, winning the queen. So black captures knight takes d5, I capture bishop takes d7, king takes d7, and queen takes d5. Okay, and the king is in the center now, and I have done everything correctly thus far. Like, I have exploited him fully. His king is in the center, but you have to also think of, your opponent's ideas, right? He's not too far away from completing development. He's still not materially down. Materially, he's still like equal. His queen is out. He needs only 1 or 2 moves to get back into the game and then connect his rooks, or 1 or 2 moves to take his king to safety. So I have a few things hanging here, like queen f7, queen e4, and I'm also concerned about castling and getting my king to safety. My king is in the center. What do you think white should do here in this position, according to you? We have learned so many principles and things here, right? So learning from your own games, I've also learned something from my own game here. I did something which is, I would not consider the best thing to do. What do you think you would have done here in this position? Anybody? His king is here. He's playing. He needs about 2-3 moves to get his pieces aligned, or 1 or 2 moves to escape with the king. I have 2-3 things hanging here which I can capture, and I have to also consider castling on the queen king side here and going about it. What do you think white should do in this position? Queen d7. No, see, I just highlighted that he wants to take his king and escape to that side of the board. I can play knight e2 and castle. I can take queen into f7. I can take queen into f4. So basically, I'm a little bit spoiled for choice here in this position. Hello, Anirudh. So queen d7, right? If I play this, he goes king b8. You're just helping him along to his own plan. His plan is to take the king to safety. a7 looks like a safe square for the king. So if you play queen d7, you're just helping him along there. Clearly, exchanges are not really helping me. And finally, I have to not forget that I'm a pawn down. Like, I'm a pawn down. I've sacrificed the pawn in the opening. So knight e2 and castle is also possible. So there are different ways to approach this position. Knight e2 and castle, right? There's a bit of a problem here. He is able to get e6. Now, if I play queen e5 check, I will play bishop e6 and his bishop is out. The rooks are connected and the king is pretty safe here on b8 suddenly. Now, if you look at the position is open. My knight is not really doing good. So suddenly, after having that good initiative, I have let go of everything and black is back with development. He's completely fine and he may be even better because he has the bishop. So what I did here is I played queen into f7, thinking that okay, if I'm a pawn down, his king, I don't see a good way to, I don't know what to do here. I played queen into f7 because I can see that I have spoiled his pawn structure. And even if he escapes back, at least I have a better pawn structure to play with, right? But that was not the good idea because I misjudged the position. He played rook c8, I played knight e2, he played king b8, king escaped. And after a couple of moves, I ended up in actually, he sacrificed some pawn and I ended up in a little bit of a bad situation here. His bishop was active, like I gave him the thing that he wanted. I'm materially a pawn up now, but my pieces are just badly, not very actively placed. It's like he's the one who sacrificed all this material, he sacrificed the pawn, and he's the one who got the initiative now. His bishop is also going to tell because his bishop is much better in the open position with some active threats, and my knight is not very nicely placed here on e2. So what could I have done better? Play in the spirit of that initiative and keep that king from escaping, keep him in the center. Here and just knight e2. I'm simply better here. I'm holding everything. I've not allowed these rooks to connect, importantly. Like now when he plays e6 and a castle, he can't even move the bishop because there are extra pawns falling and he has to waste much more time to do it or get it going. Like this is already lost for black. His king is not in time to escape and I've already castled. I have created more weaknesses. I have won the pawn back and my pieces are also coming and flowing in very nicely. So that would have been the simple thing to do. You don't need to rush and do a rook lift here. I was thinking of it that way. That is what was my mistake. I was thinking of rook here and I will try to go for, I will finish my opponent, but there was nothing happening. Surprisingly, even if he plays something like, let's say e6, okay, you don't have a mate here in the center. He's escaping. You rook lift is a good idea, but he's escaping. And your king is not, you don't have enough pieces to finish your attack. Your king has not castled, knight has not joined in. So it's just not enough. And black had other ideas also, like he had a strong queen c6, which I was looking at. I was only looking at direct ideas. Uh, Good to see you, Atul, in the chat once again. Queen c6, and I was only looking at direct plans. I was trying to finish and seeing, okay, I'm not able to finish, so I should just go ahead and capture the pawn. That is all I looked at. This has helped me improve because I learned that, okay, now I know that if I keep the king in the center, I don't need to immediately finish my opponent. I don't need to only look at rook lift. I can also think of what my opponent will do next. This is what was slightly lacking at that time. And after knight e2, I just realized that he cannot really do anything now. That's when I realized my mistake. Okay, he has to work much harder to get his king to safety. I may not win the pawn back immediately. I may not spoil his structure immediately, but I will definitely most likely win this pawn back. Most likely, I'll win one of the pawns back. I will be materially equal, but he will have to fight quite a lot and struggle to keep his king, like get his king to safety, connect his rooks. It was such a simple decision now, but that time, no. So this is where you also can improve, learning from your own mistakes, how to continue. And I went on to win the game after a lot of struggle and all. That was not the important part. The important part was when you're playing for initiative, to understand, also forgetting your opponent's resources. That is also an important thing. Don't forget what you're just, if you cannot find something yourself, don't keep looking for something yourself. Like, don't try to mate your opponent straight away. Think about what your opponent will do. Your opponent, is he able to castle? Is he able to do anything? Is he able to get his bishop out? Not really. That was a simple thing. I never thought of it that way. And now, whenever I look at it, I always think of it that way. You can also do the same. If you think that your opponent cannot really do anything, he's going to struggle here. And it would have been a simple, probably a simple victory. It's very difficult for black to play. And Engine also agrees, but this one Engine also agrees. But okay, let's move on to the next one. So this was okay, so this was the position. Actually, I have the game. Actually, I placed it here. It is by, I'll just show you. This game is by Leo and Tartacore. I forgot that I found it and placed it. So you can see here, this is the line I was talking to you about, f5 and g4. Okay, but we saw this already. 1 minute, guys. Yeah. Okay, you can see the players anyways. It's okay. White played rook d2 trying to double up. So instead of going e4, black played e into d4. Okay. What is the best capture for white, do you think, in this position? I'm sure some people remember Shiro's game and some of the ideas that white should follow in this position. So should we capture with the knight? Should we capture with the pawn and keep a nice strong center here, or what should we do? Anybody in the chat, guys? Like, you'll have an idea? Rook takes d4. I have one suggestion, rook takes d4 here. I don't know. I think I am a little bit behind. Let's see what is the issue. Supposedly I'm in low latency mode, but this is... Yeah, it would be better to capture with the knight actually than the rook, because you want to keep that diagonal also open. You want to keep a weakness on d5 to target, and you can also utilize your knight effectively on some squares like knight f5 and rook d. You played rook d2, right? So if you play rook d2, you should understand what you're like. White played rook d2. That's why I showed you the first move in the game, rook d2. E into d4, if you capture e into d4, what is the point of this rook d2 here? It's absolutely not doing anything. Your ideas also should be focused on what you have done previously, and understanding also, like, d6 is a weakness which I can hit, diagonal is open, and whenever you're playing, if you feel like you're slightly better, if you're feeling like, okay, you have some weaknesses to target, focus on them. Don't try to maintain center, and like, that's not the most thing. Even a little bit of asymmetry, or like, not a symmetrical position would actually be better, especially for an attack, especially if you're trying to attack some weaknesses. If you're trying to generate or create some weaknesses in your opponent's camp, it would be better to create some asymmetry. Like, this is an asymmetry. We saw the first, like, saw an example between Shirov. He created an asymmetry by playing bishop a3 and forcing it. Similarly here, we don't need bishop a3, but a d4, knight d4. And black could have played slowly with rook c8, but he's passive. He doesn't really have that many ideas. So what black did is he went for some initiative and went for something concrete here, which I'll show you. He went for a pawn sacrifice immediately. So where exactly do we need such pawn sacrifices? If you feel like you're just struggling, you're not able to find a plan, like maybe black was not able to find a plan, and the plans which engine suggests in this position are like very difficult to execute. Like, they are just like rook c8, h6. Like, these are not moves which you would think of playing in a practical game. Uh, you want to execute your ideas a little fast, then you can look for something like initiative or try to open up, create some play for yourself. It's definitely a little bit minus for black anyways, but you're trying to create some sort of play on the board. Like, let's see how it happened in the game. C into b5, a into b5, you are running into knight into c6 or knight into b5. You're losing a pawn because of the pin on this diagonal, pin on this file. So black played c5. And what he has created now, he has also created the same thing which white did earlier with knight takes d4. He has created a asymmetrical position, sacrificed a pawn, opened this diagonal, opened this file, opened this diagonal, and he has created some play on the board. Now let's see what he continued with. White played knight f3, realizing that if he plays bishop b7, queen b7, you can go rook takes a6 also. If the knight moves somewhere, knight e5, and suddenly like black is coming up much faster, although he's a pawn down. He's getting a lot of weaknesses to exploit pretty much immediately. So white realized that. He realized the bishop is important for him. He has to keep it. Knight f3, out comes knight e4. And this is the way you would want to play. Like, you want to play something fast and go for initiative. This is a very recent game, so white also has played very strongly and very nicely. Potish is a very strong player anyways. Waganin is also good, but black's idea was highlighted here. He wanted to play for some initiative, in the process sacrifice some material. Now we see an opening also with a very similar structure, where black sacrifices a pawn immediately in the opening itself, and the opening is Benko, where black sacrifices. So how to play, suppose somebody plays that opening, they should know how to continue, and this is a very similar structure for that. P into a6, rook into a6. Black is a pawn down, but an engine always say that this is better for white. Okay, pawn is a pawn for engine is like, happy, he likes to gobble up, but it's difficult to play as white here, because after knight takes c3, bishop e4, consolidating creating plans and weaknesses. It becomes very difficult for white to actually hold. Rook d2, ed5, so consolidating, gaining space in the center. You're trying to do something quickly and became much more difficult for black to play the best moves. Although according to engine, white is completely winning in this. So I just wanted to highlight a small point here that sometimes you can even play like slowly, but I mean, if you don't see a plan, it's okay to give a pawn. Just continue in the same spirit. Try to go for something concrete and immediate. Don't try to, focus on winning the pawn back and like try to play passively. Look for more activity and try to bounce on that. Like don't just slow down even in that position once you sacrifice a pawn. If you feel like you're just too slow, you can try to create some play by sacrificing some material also. Yeah, the opening is Benko. And I'll show one more example of my own game. So I'll show you an example of my own game here, and that will be the last thing. Yeah, so this was in 2018, and I was playing against the Indian Mikhail Tal. The Indian Mikhail Tal. He always plays very aggressive chess and very dynamic in play. But let's see what I did against him. So we'll see from the start. Knight f3, knight c6. So basically, we're also focusing on some things like countering opponent's initiative, maneuvering, and how to go about it. So let's see what he did. bb5, a6, knight f6, queen e2. Okay, this is a line in Lopez. It's not very uncommon. Played out quite some players now. Bishop e7. Don't get too excited about this because we have dc6, and if knight into e5, we have queen d4, a double attack, winning the pawn back. But okay, this is all opening still. Let's get to the point where we reach into this. Now d5, I'm going immediately taking and going in the initiative sense. Now this is a line, guys, so it's an opening theory thing, but he played d3. I played bishop e6, knight d2. Thus far, we have nothing unusual coming out. Here onwards, he played something which is a little bit this. Normally, we see castle here. He played knight d2. And I immediately understood that one of his ideas in this position is to play knight f1, knight g3 before castling. For example, now if I castle, he plays knight f1, I play rook e8 and knight g3. And then later, if he castles, right, he doesn't really have to waste time to move rook e1 and then go knight f1, knight g3. One simple point in Lopez when you have this position on the board. What I did is I played d into e4 immediately. I opened up the center because I didn't want to play close. I wanted to open up. And after d takes c4, right? What happens is now whenever he goes knight f1 or even castles and moves the knight, always there is a small threat of bishop c4. Yeah. Good to see you, Arnav, today. We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Then here in this position, I played d into e4, d into e4, and here onwards, let's look at it closely. I just tried to initiate and create some weaknesses. Knight h5. The goal is if he moves the knight, what did I tell you? Bishop c4 will be a strong thing for white to worry about. For example, knight f4, and suddenly white is already in problems here with knight g2 being a strong threat. Now here we are already out of theory. He played g3 to defend it, the most natural and the best move in the position to stop it. The moment he does this, I've also taken away his ideas of playing knight f1 and knight g3, and I've also taken away and created some weaknesses here on the king side, which I can try to exploit with bishop h3 later. So my goal was done here with knight h5. I didn't go and start g5 and start attacking him. What I did next is just castle. And here white should have just played simply with castle or slowly with a4. This were the better ways to continue. But Ratnakaran likes to play aggressive and dynamic chess. So he played h4 and started his assault. I was expecting this on the board. He likes to go for the king. The king is here. The king is not here. So he's not looking at a4. He's looking to go for aggressive chess. And now in this position, I can play passive in this, but I just moved my knight back first because knight g5 is one idea. I just moved it back. Knight g5 and bishop g4. This is the first thing. Now, why exactly will I play bishop g4? I mean, anyways, he's getting f3, right? The point is that I'm just making a weakness there. I'm taking away any ideas that the queen can ever come to h5. And I'm also opening up more lines that my bishop also can exploit. The bishop job is done there. It's not trying to go here and get trapped. This is not my goal. My goal is just to retreat the bishop back. But now I've closed those lines, opened up more lines and ideas for myself. And I'm going to counter his attack with like not by playing passive, but rather actively. One more thing is a common thing to do is h6. See, the point of knight g5 is, like, we'll see this in a moment, h6 here. This is attacking the knight, but it is not threatening anything, is what we have to understand. Like, white can just ignore. If I take, I'll get mated with queen h2 and queen h8, like opening up here. You have to realize the small things. And if I don't benefit from h6, if he's not ready to move the knight or is not helping me, I should not play h6 unnecessarily. Because after, let's say, I play a few moves and he castles, let's say even if he castles, let's just give an example, he will use that g4 g5 as a hook. He'll use my h6 pawn as a potential hook to open up the position even further. Not a good idea for me to be in, or not a good situation for me to be in. He can play f4, it will come on the board. Relax. Say he'll play f4 soon. You will see f4 coming on anyways. So b4, and I realize that there is nothing very immediately happening here on the king side. I cannot really open up on the king side, right? I don't want to open up on the king side. I don't want to create weaknesses, and that's where I started my other wing attack. But let's assume that I had a pawn on d5 and a pawn on d3. What would you do? If you see a wing attack happening, or you see an attack on the king side, you either open up the center or try for a wing attack. So the center is open now, and I'm also opening up the wing to create more possibilities. I'm not playing passively, I'm playing more dynamically. He also is playing dynamically, of course. a5. And when I play a5, I have an idea of going here. I also have one more idea to maneuver my pieces into better squares. So basically, he's attacking. I didn't play too passively. I tried to go for the same flow and play aggressively against him. He played f4, and you were asking for f4. f4 is right away on the board. The problem with a move like f4 is that it either has to work, it has to completely work, and this is what he would have not done if his pawn was on f2, because his queen is open. But here he wants to get his queen into the game, maybe create more possibilities as he goes with f4. The problem with such a move is that if it doesn't work, it creates a lot of weaknesses which we will be exploiting very soon. His attack is not very strong. His pieces are getting in the way, as we'll see soon. White went for a very strong dynamic attack, but it did not work out at all. Like a3, we realize now there is nothing. Like knight f5, knight d5 is not really threatening anything. And I'm already on my way. I'm much faster to blast through on the queen side. Went for the wing attack. He played a3, b into c3, b into c3, bishop c5, like taking that diagonal. He played f5. Now he's threatening this. The point is that wing is also open, center is also open, and there are some weaknesses that I can easily exploit to take away the most important attacking pieces that he will have. Like maybe if the bishop opens up, it will be a problem. If I exchange more and more pieces, his attack was basically useless. And one more thing is, when he plays g4, g5, his knight is getting in the way. Now imagine if I played h6, who would have benefited from it? It would have only been him. He would have got a hook there, he would have opened up the position using my pawn on h6. But now he'll have to fight for it, he'll struggle much more. I played knight a5, knight g4. He realized that this is too slow, so he's trying to utilize knight g4. And now it's actually winning for black, which I also realized. It's winning for black. All I need to do is keep calm and not blunder, not allow anything silly. Knight b3, bishop b3, a b3. I took away that bishop. Now what happens after I take away the bishop, I've opened up other things also, like my queen can join in and I can generate some dangerous mating threats on this king. And at the back of my mind, I also have one pass pawn. Just in case, I lose some material here, I lose a piece on this side, I have that b pawn which can be a problem for white to deal with. So he cannot just, utilize his bishop on this side of the board. He will have to also be worried about something to do with d2. He played knight into e5. This was a sacrifice which is already winning. Out comes bishop d6, exposing and utilizing his king effectively. Knight into f7. He went for the sack. He could have gone here, but he's just losing to bishop takes g3. And in this position, I would have also taken a step back. I'm winning a pawn with bishop g3, and that is also winning. But I would have thought, okay, he cannot really castle, right? King is center, pawn on b3. I'm a pawn down, but if I capture, I just simply allow him some ideas to, get something here. He might get something. So I would have even thought of capturing here, and instead focus my points on other things here, like here, without allowing him those attacking resources that he has. Plays e5, I just capture. In your own games also, you can try to benefit and utilize the same things. Don't always rush in. Try to take a step back and check out whether his attack is really strong. What are the more important things he needs? Which pieces will be important for my defense? All I needed was one piece. That's it. The one piece did an excellent job of defending everything. I didn't need to rush in and bring g6 and bishop f8 towards the defense. That one piece did the job for me. He went for a sacrifice here, which immediately is losing two pieces. And now two pieces, guys. One more thing, we are not in the end game yet. So always, like, these pieces will always be stronger if we are in the middle game stage of the game. Like, always it will be much stronger than two rooks. You have to keep that in mind. And I just use that to my benefit. Queen e7. The rest of the game is not really important. And I finally use this pawn also with some tactics on the board. Can anybody tell me what I did in this position? Black to play. What would you do here? There will be some complicated lines and finishes, but I went for the simplest thing. Just try to. It is not actually very simple, but anybody, any ideas? Legend games, like, I mean, it depends on you, of course. Like, if you're a legend yourself, then you don't need to. But what I'm saying is that, not that was a joke. Like, what I'm saying is that studying their games help us get us a lot of ideas. Now, it can be from their games, it can be all the recent games which are happening. Any strong player, all the strong players, basically, you follow all the recent games. It's all going to be useful, anyways. Like, in this, in helping you improve. Like, it will always be useful. So it is important winning. Like, it's one of the beneficial things to improve your chess. Like, solving tactics, mean it's important. Like, it's needed to be improve your chess. Just like studying this can also help you improve and understand different ideas. So legend games, meaning you mean classical, old classical games, if that is what you mean. And I think it's important to study all the world champion games also. You can definitely get a lot of ideas from the matches and their games. Rook takes a3, queen to rook b8. Yes, all these moves, right? Still, what is happening is, of course, these are all good moves and all are winning. Somebody said queen e5 in the chat. I don't know, but this is the top move according to engine, which stops e5 and then plans bb5, etc. It's complicated. White has something still happening here. So I was looking for ways to find the simplest way to exchange all material and still be winning. And that's why what I did is I played queen d4. This is not a top move in the position, but it is guaranteed winning. Because what is happening is I'm forcing the exchange of the queens by force. Now, if he plays bishop into f6, you can simply capture, you can capture e2 and just two bishops and two like pawns. It's just simply winning because the queens are off the board, right? Makes life much easier. Black had some ideas, okay? Like, you have to see that white had some ideas, like check here, check here. I didn't want to fall into any sort of these things, like, where you could go wrong. So I wanted to take the approach which will guarantee me a win. So I sacrificed the piece and utilize my b2 pawn finally to my use. After b2, I'm queening here by force, and I'll be supported by my bishop on f5 here, like rook e1, bishop f5. And what I realized is, even if I queen b1, right, I don't need to do it immediately, but even if I queen b1, I am still most likely winning with winning the pawn. But of course, I did it much better by capturing a3 first, and now I can even capture c3 because white doesn't have a good way to defend it. For example, if it does here, you can simply even queen b1, rook b1, and then rook a2, pin, and win that piece immediately. Or you can even do something like rook a2 first and then do it. And if it doesn't, then I will just queen. I know that no, here I cannot queen, sorry. Here, this is what happened in the game. I defended first king g6. Clearly, I don't want to blunder. The queen, he will capture and utilize this pin. So I defended. And then after this, final thing I just did is, like, he resigned after this next move. I didn't rush into b1 and like into enter the end game. I realized that that is there anyways. Anytime I can do it. So I just pushed h5 and fixed all sort of tactical ideas here. I'm completely dominating everywhere. My bishops are much more useful than the rooks at the moment. Rook c3 is also falling. His bishop on d8 is not doing anything. He has no tactical resource. And even if he gets his rook on the g file, like, he's still not having any idea here. I can even capture. I've killed off all his tactical ideas, all his possibilities, and I'm simply winning here without allowing a single tactical resource. If I'd done this, I would have lost. Or maybe a draw, I don't know, but I'm losing the piece. So I took care of all that. And simply after h5, he resigned in this position. But how what I did is important. Like I try to counter that initiative, and like understanding what is important. Like I tried to play on the other side. I kept the center open, and I made some important weaknesses in white camp, like bishop g4 and f3, which helped me quite a lot in the later stages. So same way you can also like maneuvering. We try to take pointers from all this, and similarly you should try to learn from classical players in their games. You can try to understand their ideas and try to get them in your game. You learn a pattern. Let's say you're solving tactics, you solve some Greek gift, you solve many different patterns. You can try to see if you can remotely get them in your own game. Let's try to see. Maybe you find something like white. What was white doing here? He was just using a pattern. H5 check is a pattern. You must have solved this in your puzzle rush or wherever you solve tactics. You must have got this. He just tried to actually replicate it on the board. And as black, I was always aware of it. I was aware of it right here itself. That h5 check is possible, but I utilized this g5 bishops as a resource to make it work. But if his bishop was somewhere else on e3, let's say something like this, then you know that I cannot play king g6. I'll have to find something else because it's a simple pattern which might cost me the bishop. So looking at patterns differently. Start by just like doing things like solving tactics. If you're not done it for 5 years, you can start with tactics, slowly mature into other things. Try to read some books, look at old classics, look at recent games. Most beneficial thing is look at all the recent games which are happening around the world. Try to understand what they are doing, try to guess their moves. Automatically you will always improve. Just keep looking at chess on a regular basis. Don't look at chess for half an hour and then that will not really work. So you'll have to probably spend some more time around chess. I became a GM in 2017. Yeah, 17. So that was 3 years ago. I am 25 years old. So 22, I think I became a GM. Yeah, 22 only. 21 or 22, in that range I became a GM. Anyways, I think we will wind up here, guys, and again tomorrow we'll continue with something else, a fresh day, fresh start. Might continue something based on what we are doing today, some more games of mine and others, strong players. I'll be showing you the player names also, and hopefully you all join us tomorrow too. And if you haven't already, then do hit the like button, guys. It does bring more people, and we're trying to bring you good content here. If you have any suggestions, the comment section is open. We are reading your comments, guys, and I will see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Thanks a lot for tuning in today. Hopefully you're all enjoying the series, and I will see you soon tomorrow. Bye bye. Have a nice day until then. Good night.